Hey guys, Steven here, Fanatic Perspective, going to 5,000 subscribers, September 7th, Texas LSU. Can't wait. We're almost to 4,000, John. Mm-hmm. We're on our way. I think we're around 3,900 mark. So hopefully by the end of this video, you guys can help us get us over the 4,000 plateau onto 5,000. Really, really excited just to continue to grow this community. A lot of fun, exciting engagements we have coming up with Texas Longhorns on Facebook and some other cool channels that we're going to be collabing with. Just pushing out a lot of content. Mm-hmm. And what better time to start? Today's the beginning of fall camp. First practice today. Just getting the shells on and getting out there. I know you just came out from the Texas heat. It was real hot outside.
Yep.
But that wasn't the only big news we got today.
Oh, yeah.
Bijan Robinson,
committed
Arizona, 5-star running back. 5-star running back.
People complaining about outside
recruiting. Stan
now.
Drayton can't recruit the whole bit, and so I just wanted to touch on that real quick before we get into the meat of this video. And the meat of this video is going to be our 5 breakout candidates for this season, and we'll get into what qualifies as a breakout candidate in a second here. But starting off with Bijan Robinson committing to Texas, he was not only Ohio State lean, but probably had like a soft verbal. Mm-hmm. Just your thoughts, the running back room, adding a player of his caliber to that group.
That's fantastic. I mean, we'll have a stable of running backs, and he's a guy who could just his size alone can start can get touches day one.
Oh yeah, size. I agree. Size wise.
Not only that, it opens up the pipeline to Arizona a little bit. We got one of the 5 stars there. Hopefully we can pull over a second 5-star.
Well, 2 years in a row because Jake Smith as well.
Yeah, and yes, he hasn't signed on the dotted line, and I'm still worried about it. I'm still worried about USC coming in and getting him, but I feel if we win, we got him. I feel we'll lock that signature, lock that commitment up, and I know he's got a good spot for us because he could be that power back that actually has a little bit of speed with him.
And wiggle. Yeah. I agree. I think you made a good point just now. Just because a player commits, you don't stop recruiting him.
Yeah.
Right? That recruitment's going to continue. And that goes for a lot of these brothers. Brothers that we have committed, guys like a Chad Lindbergh that committed to Georgia, that doesn't mean you stop recruiting, right? It does not count till the fax comes in with that signature on the dotted line. So that's very, very important. Now I believe we're waiting on Chris Thompson out of Duncanville.
It would be a huge week for us.
Huge.
Actually, 2 weeks.
Yeah, and a lot of people have asked and been sending messages. And those of you who continue to reach out on social media, for those of you who are not following on social media, make sure you hit the links and the comments below. I appreciate all you guys who continue to reach out with messages and updates and things that are going on, sharing your excitement with us. We love it. But for a lot of you guys that have reached out to me this week saying, hey, where's the video on the 2021 class? Really excited. And I'm excited about 2021 as well. Right now, I believe we're number 2 after all the recent recruits that we signed. Billy Bowman coming in this week. We'll have a separate video touching strictly on that. But for right now, 2020 is not over with yet.
Yeah.
When you get a major a major commitment like we had today, the momentum's still kicking up for what we got going into the fall. And to the point John just made, winning those football games and continuing to recruit these guys. John, I have a question for you.
Yep.
One more thing I want to cover before we get to the breakout, guys. Tom Herman had his first press conference today, obviously the beginning of fall camp. Also, we get to hear from Coach Herman again. And there was one thing that he said during the press conference that stuck out to me that I have a question about. He said, I'm paraphrasing, but he said, we're still looking for 2 starting corners. When you hear that quote, and he didn't say any names, he just said we're looking for 2 starting corners. And I know we had that on our concern list pretty high. I believe it was our number 3 concern in our concern video. What are your thoughts on that comment today from Coach Herman?
I mean, it can be taken one or two ways. Herman's a very indirect guy. Does that make sense? Like he beats around the bush, but you know what he's talking about. Honestly, to me, it seems like he's not happy with the productions he's seen so far within the spring practices or anything like that. So I'm assuming from his perspective that Anthony Cook hasn't taken that second step. Jalen Green hasn't taken that second step, and he's seeing a noticeable drop off from Chris Boyd and
Devontae Davis.
Devontae Davis, yeah, that's my guy too. and without that, he doesn't feel very comfortable with naming a starter right now at this point. And he's still got time. I mean, what do we have? 15 practices between now and
August
and kickoff.
31st. Yeah.
So, I mean, hopefully someone can get ramped up. We do know that Anthony Cook is going to miss the first half of the first game. So someone's got to step up and someone's got to be adequate in the starting spot.
You're not just looking for two guys; you're looking for depth there too.
Yep.
You're looking for a Kobe Boyce to step up. Can a Kenyatta Watson come in and earn some playing time? Guys like that to, or more veteran guys like a Donovan Duvernay, although I know he's a little bit smaller, but just guys that you feel comfortable putting out there on the field, right? So I know a lot of you are going to say, hey, Jalen Green was outstanding in the spring game, but we don't know how all of them practiced, right? And I think that's what you're trying to drive home is the inconsistencies that the coaching staff may be seeing. And also, if they are practicing well, making sure they don't get big heads. They could be practicing well, and he's like, look, I don't want them to get their head swole and shit gets real August 31st, and then they don't have they
the
need
lights
to know.
Blind them, and they're just not ready.
Absolutely,
they're just not ready. And
absolutely. But it was just something that stuck out to me, and I wanted to pick your brain about it.
So I know this happened last year, but they keep showing that. I keep on seeing it being shared. Is the video of the one-handed sideline catch by Colin Johnson
on
Anthony Cook. How good of coverage do you think he had on there?
He was outstanding coverage.
Outstanding. He just made it
tip your hat. And the guy's 6'6",
yes.
and if he's healthy, he's going to be a first
round.
So
maybe that also might be attributed to the fact that we have a very strong wide receiver core, and they'll only get better once they're playing quote unquote lesser competition than what they had.
And Anthony Cook, he knows what's up. He had to guard David Sills in that West Virginia game. I mean, it's not like he hasn't played at all. The consistency has to get there. I think when you have very talented guys like that, one day in practice, they're going to look all-American. And the next day in practice, it's going to be like frustrating and the lack of technique.
Where was that guy?
Where's the guy we saw on Tuesday? You know what I mean? So that's where your veterans have to step up and show guys every single day. We've got to be consistent. Because if you have a bad rep, that causes a bad rep for the defense, right? We got a rep playing well together as a unit as well. So I think that's very, very important. Let's get into our 5 breakout guys.
Cool.
Now, to me, what constitutes as a breakout player is somebody who is not a household name yet, somebody who has either not played a bunch or hasn't had that productivity. It could be a young player. It could be a player that's been here for years, but they've never been all conference or anything like that in terms of the expectations may not be the highest for that particular player. There could be a question mark at their position group, and we think that player will rise up and be a big factor in us competing, not only competing for the Big 12 championship, but winning the Big 12 championship. So these are the 5 players we've identified who meet those qualifications, if you will. We're going to start. We also have some honorable mentions because there's some people we left off, and I don't want people to feel like because we didn't name a particular player that we think they're not going to have a good season or anything like that. So just some of the guys: Jake Smith, Cade Brewer, and one other guy that you mentioned when we were talking as an honorable mention that cracked me up.
Ryan Bushevsky. We've kind of been rough on him a little bit, but I mean, he's only been playing American football for 6 months before he started, and I mean, he can only go up. I mean, we didn't really get to see him with the extra 10 practices. How many practices is between
in the spring? We didn't see him at all.
We didn't get to see him because we dominated the Georgia game and we really didn't punt. So he can only go up. Even whether it's just focusing on his directional kicks, his accuracy on where he wants to go with the ball will be a huge improvement.
Absolutely. Cade Brewer and Jake Smith are guys that we think are going to have a role to play in our offense. In Cade Brewer's case, he is a starting tight end. I think there's just still some question marks there in terms of, is he all the way back? His ability as a blocker, especially filling in for a guy like Andrew Beck. But I do think he's going to play a role. I just don't have him in my top 5.
Right.
Jake Smith, I think is going to be a huge playmaker for us, especially starting out on special teams, just right off the bat with his speed and athleticism. I just don't know what his role is in the offense since today was his first day of football practice as a Texas Longhorn. So those are some guys I also have just keeping my eye on, Jake Smith, Cade Brewer. And you guys hit us up in the comments with anybody else you have your eye on that we do not mention in these 5 players. Let me ask you this. Do you want to go 1 through 5 or 5 up to 1? How do you want to do it?
Let's go from go all the way up to 1.
Okay. So number 5, Jordan Whittington, running back.
Texas.
No, I just wanted you to chime in. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, he's already getting talked about within the coaching staff on how ready he is for college football, especially keeping his speed while adding on 20 pounds of muscle. And not only that, I mean, you got to look at it. This guy took his team on his back
at Cuero,
to a state championship. He was their everything, legitimately their
broke
everything.
Records.
Yes, and we even saw it in the spring game. I mean, yeah, he didn't have a huge run or anything like that, but
you saw the explosiveness.
You saw the explosiveness, and you saw that we're willing to give him the touches, and that's huge for a running back to try to get going, get more touches, keep going. Let's keep feeding him. That's what Zeke likes to do. So if he keeps on getting in a rhythm, I don't think that with this offensive line, I don't think that there's really going to be stopping him later on down the season.
I think with what Tom Herman also said of having more of an onus on our running backs running the football in our run game. We've relied heavily the last 2 seasons on our quarterback run game. And with Jordan Whittington really coming in and replacing that Trey Watson role alongside Keontae Ingram and having their bodies ready to go. And no disrespect to Trey Watson. He was a godsend for us, just like Calvin Anderson was on the offensive line as a grad transfer. He came from the way of Cal. But Jordan Whittington is an upgrade in terms of that speed, that playmaking ability. And some of the videos you guys remember seeing from practice over the spring of him breaking those long runs. We talk all time. Every video we've had, we talk about we had no play over 50 yards last year. This is one of those guys that's going to break break that threshold. And I expect multiple from him. I expect him to be the Alvin Kamara of our offense. And I started to see that in the spring. That also goes to what we were talking about with the analyst and them being involved in molding it. They were doing some things just from an alignment perspective and how they were using him lining up a lot in the slot, him lining up out wide against linebackers because he was originally recruited to play wide receiver. Just having that versatility, you're going to see a lot of the things you see from Alvin Kamara that you see on Sundays with the New Orleans Saints. And I think some of the creativity, especially from a Larry Fedora, how he used to use his running backs in North Carolina, Jordan Whittington fits that skill set perfectly. And the great thing too is Ingram's a good pass catcher, right? So defensively, it's not super defined on who's going to do what because everybody can do everything.
Yep.
That's the beauty of having a player like a Jordan Whittington. So, like you said, I'm really, really excited. We have him in our 5 hole. The next 4 players that we're going to name are guys we've seen in some capacity in this Texas program, but we think they're going to make that leap.
Yeah.
So, number 4 is my guy, and y'all have heard me refer to him many times on this channel, Joseph Osai. Who I believe, and I think I said earlier, I forgot when, I said he will lead this team in sacks this season. I think he's going to step up and have a huge year. I believe he led us in tackles in the Georgia game.
Yes.
In the Sugar Bowl. And the brother, honestly, he blew me away in the Iowa State game. He really, really blew me away in the Iowa State
player. Game. And you know who he kind of reminds me of? Miles Jack. I think he's a guy you could put him down with his hand down in the ground and also drop him into coverage.
Play standing up.
I really do. I think he's just a phenomenal
in terms of like
athlete.
the versatility
yes,
as an athlete. Got you.
And I agree with you completely. You know, we saw just a little glimpse, a little flash of it in that Georgia game against, you know, a very tough opponent. And he didn't shy away from it, and he showed his speed on tape.
Absolutely. And you saw that in the spring game, too. I know he kind of got lost a little bit in coverage, but him running down the field with Jordan Whittington on the wheel.
Oh, yeah, on that wheel.
Yeah, like 50 yards downfield, and he's on his hip, you know. So just the ability to do those things, the more you can do in a Todd Orlando defense, the more availability, the more snaps you're going to have on the field. His ability to put his hand in the dirt and go rush the passer. But like Tran said, being able to stand up, play off his back foot, come forward in the run game, I think that's going to be huge. Outside contain is also a very big part of this offense, of our defense, excuse me, and something we're going to be looking for from Joseph Osai. We might be looking back at this list and saying, why wasn't he higher? In all seriousness, I think he's that level of talent. Just flat out blew me away in the little he played last year.
With a perfect segue, the reason why he might not be higher is the next guy on the list is Keandre Coburn. I honestly think that Keandre will take so much. He may not have huge numbers, to tell you the truth, but so much focus will be on him from the offense.
His presence will be felt,
and it will make a Joseph Osai's job easier, a Malcolm Roach's job easier. The cornerbacks that we discussed, it should make their job
interior
easier.
pressure.
Just giving that quarterback something to think about. That the double team. I mean, you can't run it up the gut with that big boy there. I mean, what is he, 335? I mean, that's what Puna Ford wasn't even that big. So, and he was eating up those double teams. If this guy is half as good as that, we will be very.
I'm glad you brought up Puna Ford, because we've actually had a pretty decent run over the last few years, even predating Tom Herman, with the defensive tackle position. You know, Malcolm Brown was obviously our last first round pick. Puna Ford, even what Chris Nelson gave us. We do have a nice little. Even going back to the Desmond Jacksons and guys like that, right? Like, we've had a good, nice little run with defensive tackles. He's as talented as any of these guys, right? And if we're trying to mimic the success we had in the 05, 06, 04, like that time period, we had the Frank Oakums, we had the Rod White, the Rod Wrights, and those type of guys, right, up front. And Keandre Coburn, talent-wise, he was the number one defensive tackle when he came out of high school, right? He does have that. The thing you see with him is that infectious enthusiasm for football carries over to his teammates. And I love that from the big man, right? It carries over, you know, to his linemen, we need anything. We've all listed linebacker as a concern. Anything to help keep visibility better for our linebackers and just keeping bodies off of them. Keandre Coburn is going to be a huge part of that. He's going to be an essential part of the defensive line rotation in the middle. The next guy we want to mention, this is number two breakout player for the Texas Longhorns, and a guy who I believe I could make a strong argument he's the most talented player on the Texas Longhorns roster. I can make that argument, and I'm talking about B.J. Foster. Now, hear me out. I don't even know how many games he started last year. I think he maybe started 2 or 3 games last year. He had 46 tackles, 2.5 sacks, and an interception. Playmaker.
It's pretty good line.
Got it, tore it up in the Georgia game, right? Like, and this is a man who's out for blood. We saw in the USC game.
You saw in the Georgia game. There was a couple times where he laid out Fromm,
right?
and it was just like Fromm was looking around.
Honestly, like with B.J. Foster, we talk about NFL players and guys like that. He has all the potential in the world. We spent last week talking about how excited we were for our safety room with Caden Stearns as well as Brandon Jones. B.J. Foster has as much talent, if not more, than those guys, because he has the perfect combo of everything you look for in a safety. And I think the way he's going to be deployed in our defense, out of the nickel, playing a little bit of linebacker and playing far, because he's also proven he can track the ball down the field. He can high point a football and make plays. I'm super. I don't know if there's a more excited player I'm excited to see than B.J. Foster this year.
I can see that. I mean, just the hits. I mean, it just turns the mood around for your defense. What happened in that USC game where he laid him out? I honestly think it was still a clean hit.
It was a legal hit.
Oh, because he hit him with his forearm.
No question in my mind.
But football, you just saw the sidelines just erupt with we're here to play type of thing, and he's going to bring that. And
he gets that juice, man.
And he's just not just a thumper, like you said. He's very versatile. He could drop into coverage. He's probably going to be our best rusher, honestly. And
great, to your point, great blitzer, just like his cousin. Quandre was. Remember Quandre off the edge? Another brother out of Angleton that would come off the edge and just blow people up. And granted, he's much smaller than BJ, but I see just the world for BJ. I really, really do. As excited, like I said, as excited as I am for Caden Stearns and for Brandon Jones, cementing his legacy as a senior, BJ Foster is that man for me. Number one, and we had some discussion about this, and this is a guy who has produced some in this program, and a guy who we
should have produced more.
More, and we don't want him to leave his career. He's a senior. This is a guy we don't want to leave his career as one of the great what ifs.
Yeah, and
who am I talking about?
The what ifs aren't on. Before I say it, it's like the what ifs aren't on. It's not his fault, to tell you the truth.
Yes.
So we're going with Devin Duvernay. He had 500 plus, a little bit more than 500 yards. The issue with it is that we missed him on quite a few deep routes, and I think with the maturity of Sam and also the offensive line playing so well, I mean he had the best catch percentage.
Didn't have a drop,
in the NCAA.
Yeah.
And if you're hitting him on those deep post routes, no one's catching him. He's a speedster.
And when we say breakout, I'm saying like this is a guy who we could look back at the end of the season as somebody who's potentially makes all conference because of his productivity. I think Sam, to your point and to Tom Herman's point in the press conference, his productivity is tied directly to Sam Ehlinger's development as a passer.
Yep.
Tom Herman was very clear on that today, that their issues are quarterback related as in regards to his ability to get separation down the field, his ability to connect on those deep post routes. So I'm looking at a Devin Duvernay. That's why we said somewhere between 800 to 1,000 yards, getting those touchdowns up and having that because his yards per reception average would have been insane if we hit on some of those. I mean, I know many of you are probably thinking about like the Kansas State game right off the bat, right, where there's nobody within 25 yards of the guy. Also, his ability to not sulk and lead by example. One of the things that really impressed me about Devin Duvernay last year was him starting to really work underneath a lot, and there were times where he took over even as a possession wide receiver and made some plays, was able to move the chains, able to be physical, running through contact. One of the interesting things out of practice today that some of us heard, and I heard reported, was him actually working in the slot a little bit at Little Jordan Humphrey's position. Now, is that an indictment on Joshua Moore or Jake Smith? I don't know, but I've also heard that
probably
was more
trust.
I also heard it was more to get Brennan Eagles on the field.
Oh, okay.
They're at the point now with Brennan Eagles where he could also be an honorable mention here. They can't keep him off the field. And I know he didn't really get much opportunity in the spring game, but we know the potential he has. A lot of people saw Des Bryant when he came out of high school in terms of the comp with Brennan Eagles. But back to Devin Duvernay. That position, if he's playing, say, 50, 60% in the slot, that's a heavy targeted position in the Tom Herman offense and in this scheme. That also constitutes handoffs in the run game. Things that we were excited to see from him when he got here. He also needs to show a more diverse route tree for the NFL because he may be asked to play in the slot. I've compared him high side to Golden Tate and having that ability because I do see that from him in terms of his build and his speed. But we got to see that productivity from Devin Duvernay. I think he's ready. The question is,
he absolutely is ready.
Is the quarterback ready from a development standpoint as a passer? specifically on those tougher
One thing I
throws.
want to go back to what you said is the fact that he had so many opportunities to be a stud in this offense, and it wasn't his fault that he didn't get a reception or something like that. He didn't sulk. That's why I know for a fact that he's ready. He's a mature player. He's playing now for not only the university but also for a paycheck.
Mm-hmm.
And if he can get more touches in the slot position, hey, I trust him. I trust him with his hands. Watch that Colin Johnson video where they use the cannon.
Oh yeah. And if y'all not following Colin Johnson, his lifestyle vlog on YouTube, make sure y'all check him out and support him. I totally agree, man. And he has a professional demeanor about him, the way he practices, the way he works, his blocking, everything, about the brother. And we just want the world for him. I'm thankful for guys who stick it out through tough times and don't transfer. He since he got here when he was, already signed up to go to Baylor, comes in, coaching staff's fired. Zach Shackelford actually recently saw his comments about the Charlie Strong guys, the guys that are like the survivors of the program, right? And how that's kind of how they view themselves. And Devin Duvernay is one of those guys who he could have left. He could have bailed. He could have gone to any other school and gotten more opportunities to get the touches and get the stats that he needed, but he stuck it out. Him and his brother, right? So, just to recap our list. Number 1, Devin Duvernay is our number 1 breakout player for the Texas Longhorns this year. Number 2, B.J. Foster. Number 3, Keandre Coburn. Number 4, Joseph Osai. Number 5, our freshman Jordan Whittington. But guys, like I said, the beginning of this breakout list, there's several people who we expect, who haven't contributed in the past or are new to this program, that we expect big things out of going into this 2019 season. So, again, let's continue to talk. We'll have some recruiting content coming out, I promise. Next video will probably...
Yes, 2021 is fantastic.
yes. The recruiting stuff is coming, but we're also going to deep dive, and the next video in our preview series is going to be us going through the schedule. Where are those line mine games? Where do we feel good about? And just really breaking things down and how we're going to navigate this season. But we appreciate it. Make sure you guys are subscribing. A lot of you guys watch the videos every week.
Yeah.
And because our watch time is crazy, but then y'all not hitting the subscribe button. Make sure you hit the subscribe button. Make sure you hit the notification button as well, so you guys know when we're posting the new videos, and keeping up with us on social media. I have been starting to curate different content for those platforms as well for this channel.
Share.
And those of you who are sharing, continue to share, and we appreciate you.
Absolutely.
All right, man. Appreciate you.
Always.
Horns always up.